Hi guys, today I'm coming to you from Rietvlei Dam, close to Johannesburg in South Africa, because Canon has some really exciting news for us. So far, up to now, for the long-range shooters out there, Canon had two products for us. The famous and beautiful 800mm f5.6 and its small baby brother, the 800mm fix f11. Today, Canon announced a really exciting product, the 200 to 800mm f6.3 to f9. What a phenomenal lens, and Canon allows me to have a quick play with this to give you a first impression video. Please stick around to the end and figure out whether you like the quality of this lens, check out my photographs, and come with me on a tour through Rietvlei Dam. Before we get started, my name is Janine and I'm a professional wildlife photographer with pangolin photo safaris. I must have the best job in this world because I take people like you to amazing places like this and help you get the best photographs out there. If you would like to join our growing community of wildlife enthusiasts, please don't forget to subscribe. Right here, click on the bell button so you will never miss a gear review, a trip or tutorial ever again. All right, let's dive right into it. Please remember guys, this is a first impression video. There's only two of these lenses right now on the Southern Hemisphere, and I can call myself lucky to test this one. And I want to give you some general specs of the lens, see how it handles, how it feels out in the field, how the focus performs, and obviously how you like the image quality at the end. So let's dive right in. This lens is ultra light for 800mm. It weighs just over 2 kgs, and I can't believe how I can handhold it. It has a beautiful large foot, so you can balance it well on a gimbal or a gimbal head. And what I really liked is that Canon listened to its consumers and it got rid of the option to pull the ring off the lens by accident. Often, and that means you can't drop the lens. You can actually carry it by its foot nice and solidly without ever having to worry. There's a little water monitor lizard here, and I don't really like shooting down on animals, but it's interesting to see the minimal focal distance. It's actually under a meter on 200mm, and it's not really that far for 800mm. It's 3.3 meters, which I find perfectly acceptable. By the way, Roger's bringing this lens up to our Canon Festival in the first week of December, so you can test for yourself, and we might get a chance to give you a proper full-on review. The lens has a nice little adjustment ring so that you can adjust the zoom tighter or more smoothly, but I have to say it is quite a tight zoom, especially if you try and get all the way from 800 to 200 in one go. That being said, it might loosen up a little bit after a while. On the side of the lens, we have two controls, autofocus and manual focus, as well as image stabilization on and off. We only have two modes here. We have no other options. It does work in conjunction with our camera body, obviously, but Canon told me on the longer focal length, the image stabilization is mostly done by the lens. Stabilizing it on 800 is quite something. It's definitely different from a 400mm. As you can see, the zoom is an external zoom. I know photographers often enjoy an internal zoom as it pulls less dust, it pulls less dirt, and it is easier to balance and to handle in your hand. However, we have a 600mm zoom from 200 to 800. Canon just could not fit that in this one light lens, and I'm really quite happy how it balances in my hand. Next is obviously the f-stop. The aperture is a huge deal in every lens, and here we speak about f6.3 to f9. So what does that mean for us? I tested it for you, and just under 300 millimeter, the lens jumps to 7.1. Just under 500 millimeter, the lens does its next jump to f8. And then towards 800 millimeter, we hit f9. I think that is pretty generous. If we wanted it to be a 6.3 on 600 millimeter, you could expect it to be at least half a kilogram more heavy and definitely quite a bit more expensive, but we will get to the price towards the end. Right now, I would like to take you out so we can see how this performs in the field. Do I like this f9? Can I get nice and close? And what does 800 millimeter mean when you go and shoot animals out in the field? I'm on 25,600 ISO, but I need that speed for the flycatcher. I'll catch you in flight with that backlit through the wings. It will be beautiful. For the smaller birds, that 800 mil is fantastic. Oh, did I catch that? We're out here in a hide looking for something to photograph. We got a little black-shouldered kite here. And I think this is a good moment to talk about the lens's f-stop. f6.3 on 200, all the way to f9 on 800. Some people might cringe. f9, why? Well, that's why this lens is only about 2 kgs heavy, easy as that. I'm personally a big fan of lower f-stops. I'm shooting a 400 2.8, but that's only on 400. And you must remember, it is not only the f-stop that determines your background and how smooth it gets. It is in big parts how close you get to your animal. The closer you get to your animal, the shallower is your depth of field. And 400 millimeter versus 800 millimeter is a huge difference. On 800 millimeters, you get closer to most things, especially when you're not allowed to off-road, and therefore you will automatically get a shallower depth of field, even on an f9. That being said, on 800 mil, on that distance, we're going to get a lot of atmospheric disturbance, whether that be dust or haze or a bit of a mirage from the heat. So things that are really far away, you can't shoot clearly. This 800 mil lens is phenomenal for nice detail shots, animals that are a little bit closer to you anyway. And when they're closer to you, you are going to get a nice shallow depth of field. Picks up the stone shed really fast. It's nice to see you, even if you lose it. Quickly picks it up again. So we're back from our little cruise through Rietvlei Dam, and let's have a look at the images together. I mean, I felt it was really nice to handle this one. I love the 5.6, but much easier to handle this one and pick up animals on it because you can zoom back and then zoom out again to get them. The question is, how good is the image quality? Let's have a quick look together. So, as you can see, I could pick up this little weaver right out of the air. I have no trouble with the focusing system. It picks up bird life just as good as it does on a fixed lens that costs a lot more than this. Yes, it doesn't always find their eye on mammals, but that is normal. That has nothing to do with this lens. And let's have a quick look at that little stone chat, because I was able to compare the 200-800 and the 2-800 fixes side by side. And we were only about, 3-4 meters away from him, and he was kind enough to sit long enough for us to change the lenses. And as you can see, on an f9, that stone chat is pin sharp. And the beautiful thing about the f9 is that nearly the entire bird is equally sharp. My background is beautifully blown out because he was sitting elevated from the ground with nice subject separation, which is fantastic. And I can see on that 800 f5.6, I actually missed my focus a couple of times where I didn't get the focus right because my depth of field was simply so tiny. So this was now comparing this 200-800 to our 800 5.6. But how does it compare to the much cheaper one, our 800 f11? Our little stone chat here, I shot both on an f11, and here you can see the difference. Well, I struggle seeing the difference on f11. They both look pretty sharp to me. Obviously, this one you can shoot on an f9. You can see slightly less detail in the background. Once you get that subject separation at that close distance, your depth of field is so shallow that it really makes no difference, not to me yet anyways. It will make a difference though the moment you are lacking the subject separation, and sadly we're not always able to be on eye level with our animals, especially in Africa where there's a lot of dangerous wildlife around. There's strict rules and regulations where you can get on the ground. Our photographic boats in the Chobe are actually excellent for that because you're on a floating platform that puts you right on eye level. It will make your life a lot easier. But how does it look like when you don't have that fantastic subject separation? We had another chance on that long claw on the ground. And here you can see, yes, of course, that f5.6 is just gorgeous. It's like butter. It's stunning. But the 200-800 is pin sharp. There's nothing not sharp about this lens at a closer range. Yes, the background is a bit busy, but it is also a lens that will cost you a lot less. We'll talk about the price a little bit later. So I want to say for, 10 times less of the price. Yeah, is it 10 times less of the quality? No, certainly not. Let's look at a few images where we had the subject a little bit further away. And you can see, yeah, on our guinea fowl, the image quality is phenomenal. As the subject gets a little bit further away, our image quality is not quite the same anymore. I want to say it's sharp. Is it sharper though than the f5.6? I made a comparison test on a little black-bellied korhaan, and that bird was a much larger distance than the previous birds, and you can see we don't get the same feather detail, the same crispness. You cannot just judge whether a lens is sharp or whether a lens is blurry based on what's around you, but you need to consider the mirage. How hot is it? The dust, the atmosphere, is there smog? Are you shooting in the city? All that affects your shot dramatically because we get atmospheric disturbances at that length. And that is where the problem comes in on 800mm once you start shooting at a distance. I want to give you an example. We shot a black wildebeest. Look how funky this thing looks. I was really excited to see one. Normally I'm photographing blue wildebeest in East Africa. And you see, well, it's a stunning pose. It looks really cool. You get a good idea about this animal. But gee, nothing is sharp here. And that is not the fault of this lens. That is mirage. That was the heat that I saw shimmering through there. So anything more than 25-30 meters, forget about it. Doesn't matter what lens you hold, you cannot get a sharp image. All in all, I'm very, very happy with how crisp this lens is, how much detail it shows me within the range of a certain distance. By the way, you might have noticed this is a wide-looking lens, but it is not part of the L series lenses. It is lacking the red stripe on the top. The color wide was simply chosen for technical purposes to keep the lens nice and cool. All right, let's wrap this up, guys. The last and final important question is, at what price point is this coming in? We're talking about roughly $2,600 that Canon is planning to market this at. Is it worth its money? Let's compare it to our two little other 800mm lenses. Our 800 f11 is coming in at about $1,000. That's quite a lot cheaper, more than half of the price of this one. But not just is this an f11, we talked about the f-stops, but it is a fixed lens. For beginner's lens, I always found that is really quite difficult. Not being able to zoom back in order to find your subject is incredibly difficult, and not just for beginners. For action shots, it is crucial for all the photographers out here. You have that flexibility to go from 200 to 800 all the way down to f6.3, and I would say that's definitely worth another 1,500, 1,600 US dollars, my opinion. In comparison to the 800mm f5.6, which comes in at a staggering roughly 17,000 US dollars, well, I just don't think you can compare it, honestly. Yes, I love that smooth background. I love the buttery background. I love my f2.8 400, that's why I shoot it, but how often do you go and take pictures? Can you afford it? Do you need to take up a loan at the bank? What do you do with these images? Do you do identification shots? Do you blow them up to an A1 image and hang them up? They need to be perfect, picture perfect. Or do you do it out of fun for nature, like we should all really do it? I think for its price point, it's doing a phenomenal job. But as a photographer, you need to keep these two things in mind that I mentioned earlier. Number one, at 800mm at a long distance, you cannot expect a sharp picture unless it is super crisp, clear early mornings with no dust or haze in the air. And number two, you need to understand your sensor capabilities. You need a high-performing full-frame sensor to compensate for the higher f-stops. And then it really shouldn't be much of an issue regarding your noise. But technically, you need to understand what you're up against. And if you do, I think this is a beautiful piece of gear. Check out my images now to see whether you liked what I was able to get here today. Bye-bye.